Welcome to month 5 of Malaysia Part 2. It's been an incredible ride so far. In a matter of months, we've gone from a climate of fear in the world's worst case of kleptocracy to an enlightened society where all manner of changes are being openly discussed and even seriously considered. Even our leaders are worthy of mention. We've got one of, if not the world's oldest Prime Minister. We have one of the world's youngest, if not the youngest, ministers. We've also got the phoenix-like return of a political exile, and people are openly discussing things like legalizing marijuana, like gay rights, and taxing the internet, and all in a country where Islam is a primary faith and a country that openly embraces the digital economy. So since we're in a new Malaysian dawn, how about pushing the boat further out? Here are 3 more very Malaysian things that, in my honest opinion, we could very well do without. Number 1, titles and honorifics. Saudara Lim Guan Eng recently lashed out at his fellow party members for accepting dato-ships a mere 5 months into their maiden terms in government. And you know what? That fella is right lah. What in the name of all that's holy are these chaps accepting titles for, if they've only just started their new jobs? Here are some responses I found on Twitter. One said Malaysia should discard the title mentality. Another said Dato and conman same. And yet another said Datos must earn that respect consistently. Empty titles make these recipients no different than the lot before them. So here's a thought. Why don't we just ban titles and honorifics once and for all? They've only served to divide society, segregated business and society, and have made us insecure with one another. But the worst damage they've inflicted on this still young nation has been a system of patronage that abets graft and corruption. Last year, Malaysia dropped to the 62nd spot in Transparency International's Annual Corruption Perceptions Index, our lowest position since the index began in 1995. So let's do ourselves all a favour. Let's stop conferring datos and Tan Sris and Tunships on ourselves. Not only will we be less insecure with one another, we will also get a less corrupt and more efficient government. Number 2, national unity. Now, Senator P. Weta Muti has asked Malaysians for their feedback on a so-called National Unity Action Plan, which will be used eventually to strengthen and improve social unity, cohesion and reconciliation amongst all Malaysians. To which I would like to reply to the good senator, please, don't waste everyone's time. The only way this country can truly be a Malaysia for all Malaysians is if we are all equal among one another. You see, the Malaysia of today is not an equal playing field for all. Some have better access to jobs, houses, loans, grants and university places, while others, they've got to make do with less, sometimes much less. And all this because of a deal that was reached more than half a century ago, which of course its beneficiaries want preserved. There's lots of evidence that the system has not worked, but we still ignore this evidence, reluctant to upset the status quo. Look, if poverty alleviation is the ultimate goal, then let's make that the goal. Let's ditch this scheme which has shown no signs of success and every sign of abetting corruption, and let's introduce policies which lift all boats, not just the ones belonging to a privileged majority. Education is one easy solution. Let's lift the standards of the English taught in school and give it the priority of a primary language like it used to be back in the old days. We all know this. It is the language of business and spoken by some of the richest nations in the world.
So you've made the case that English should be that lingua franca. Why English and not, say, a language like Mandarin?
That's a great question. I'm not the one who's selecting the choice for a common language. English is actually the common language of business today.
Let's make travel cheap. We can do this by working with the private sector. They are excellent at working out the commercial opportunities of putting more bums on seats to more cities in Malaysia and around the world. The airlines, the hotels, the digital economy already know that by experiencing other cultures and meeting people other than our own, will we wake up to the fact that the world is a lot larger than we think. Travel is hugely enriching.
And then when you encounter different people, you realize to what extent there are different ways of being on this earth. Obvious ways of speaking, but ways of thinking, ways of dressing, ways of eating, ways of relating to each other.
But above all, let's be honest with ourselves. Success never came from lowering the bar or pretending that we're better than we really are. Success, it only arrives with hard work, perseverance, and discipline. So if we want real unity, dear Senator, let's first be honest with ourselves and force through real change by discarding old ways and devising new and more effective ones. Number 3, progress via consumption. Even with evidence almost daily that climate change is upon us, we continue to consume electricity, fuel, and resources on a maniacal basis. Most recently, the UN came up with a report saying that humanity only has 12 years to get climate change under control. Otherwise, all the extreme weather we've been seeing on movies and TV will become our reality. Will this make us realize that we cannot go on in the same way? Will this galvanize us into really rethinking progress? It doesn't really have to equate to iPhones, bungalows, and BMWs, does it? For sure, it can mean something else, such as mutual respect for one another, for the natural world, like family values in an open and fair society, and adequate power, housing, education, and connectivity for all, not just the privileged few. We don't really have to labor and muddle through a system that no longer works in a resource-depleted world. So, many things to consider for our fledgling government then, but there's still lots of political goodwill and time to see at least some of these ideals through. So here's hoping. Just saying.